Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the next training session on Discoverer Viewer reports. The last training session we did cover the status of funds. We talked before about the Preferences tab and ensuring that your line items are 999,999 and the timeout functions. Just double check and make sure that Enable Fan Trap Detection block is unchecked. Quick reminder, if you haven't already set up favorites through your Edit Favorites link here, that right click is always something nice to put before Discover Viewer to ensure that you remember if you go into Discover Viewer Direct, there's no avenue back into the DEAMS homepage. So please go ahead and right click on your link, or if down below, you can click here on the Discover Viewer Navigator, and over under Responsibility you'll be able to do the same thing. Just right click and open it in a new tab, and you'll open your worksheet list. Once you're in here, you have your familiar search screen, and here you can search for any term that you feel best describes it. 1081 if you're looking for that. Invoices is another common term. FMA will bring up several. Status we've already seen, but today we're going to start with something that all of us know is the STH. It's a perspective increase that you're probably used to if you're a legacy transferring unit, but otherwise it's a general ledger transaction report, and there's two of them, but we're going to worry about the -new. The -new gives a few more columns of data that are useful, and it was created last on January 2016, so it's relatively new. As of today, it's May 19th. So go ahead and click on the little expand icon here. It'll expand down to show you the sheets that are available. Here it only has the one for the GL transactions. So we're going to go ahead and click on the GL transactions to get our parameter screen open. Now that our parameter screen is open, there are several different parameter options that are available here on the DEAMS GL or STH tab, but we're going to run a annual STH, so anything for this fiscal year. So what I'm going to be concerned about is the GL post date is greater than the start of the fiscal year. So for this year, it's October 1st of 2015. You can use the less than to trigger just a quarter. The period in DEAMS, the periods are listed as March, the fiscal year, and that. So if you're looking for only one period, but ensure that you have your OE loaded, because if you don't put your OE in there, it's going to run wide open for every DEAMS unit. It's going to slow everything down, and you're going to sit there a long time waiting. If you're looking for just O&M or mil-pers, your main account is where you want to be. If you want to do just your fiscal year transactions, go ahead, but understand that this is not any transaction that has occurred in the fiscal year. It's any transaction that has impacted that fiscal year. So if you're looking for any of your fall-in data or anything that might have hit prior fiscal year accounting, payments of last year's contracts, etc., just make sure that your posted date is there. You can have your BLIN, your BA, your PEC, your cost center, your object class, which some of you may know as EEC. You can make sure that you exclude an object class. So if you're running something wide open and you want to leave out anything that starts with a 1, for example, which is all civ pay, go ahead and just put a 1% there. ESP codes and contingency codes, activity identifiers, sales codes. I don't need any of that. What I do need is the AAI. I'm going to put in my Limestone DEAMS AAI. If you're another unit, please do that, but some of your legacy stuff can flow over. GL account, you could run just wide open with a 4%. That's going to do anything budgetary in the general ledger accounting codes or GLACs. Understand that any GLAC that starts with a 1, 2, 3, a 5, 6, 7, or 8 is proprietary accounting. It's going to be your impact or your profit loss sheets, basically. But 4 is budgetary accounting, and a 9 is pending transactions. So you could run a 4%, and it gives you everything, but it also gives you X, the old legacy system of the apportionment. I don't want that apportionment. So what I do have is I have a listing here of all of the GLACs that are currently impacting any commitment, obligation, or outlay level. And I'm just going to copy and paste that. You just separate multiples with a comma and no space. And now I'm going to go straight down here and click Go. And I'm going to allow that process to run. So now, after only about 2 minutes and 53 seconds, we now have our general ledger transaction that has run. And now understand that your STH is just similar to how you used to research in CRIS. With the exception of the FSR and PSR, you no longer can run just the PSR level to see what's impacted it. However, between the BA, the PEC, the cost center, the object class, and the ESP, you are likely to be able to get exactly to that line of accounting that you're worried about researching. So you can use this screen, or you can export into Cell and do your research from there. So remember, we're just going to go up here and we're going to click on Export. We're going to change this drop down here to Excel Workbook, allow it to refresh, and then we're going to click Export. Now remember, the STH that I ran was wide open from 1 October, and it's going to be an extensively long transaction history already through 8 months through the year. So it took a while to get this export ready, but we're just going to go ahead and click View or Save. And then always in DEAMS, remember, we're going to save it as. And then you're going to find your location where you want to save it. When you find that location, make sure that if you're saving it over, you just do go ahead and continue to save it as a Microsoft Excel 97 to 2003 worksheet and click Save. Now for your viewing pleasure, you will see that it will just tick away your kilobytes to megabytes down here. Don't be surprised when this file size hits 12 to 13 kilobytes, or 12 to 13 megabytes. It is a large file. That's why we convert them down, just like we did in the status of funds, to a Microsoft Excel macro-enabled notebook. It'll make the size much more compact and allow the macros to run for visibility. But what we're going to do is we're going to save this document in that location, and then we're going to open it up and we're going to walk through it. I will say that at this point, occasionally when you do click Save and then you get this dialog box, it will say that it could not be downloaded and give you the opportunity to retry. Don't go ahead and retry it. It will download a bad file. At that point, I do recommend just going back up here to the top, clicking on this General Ledger STH-New GL transactions. It'll take you back to the query you just ran. Click Go again. It will just do a quick page refresh and then go through the export process one more time. So once you see that the download is finally completed, just go ahead and click on Open to open that Excel file up. Just like all other DEAMS reports, you'll notice that once it opens, you're going to have to enable content to run this macro down there, so go ahead and do that. Now that the macros run, we have a much nicer formatted columns. And you're going to see a lot of columns that are very familiar to you. Here's just your amount, negative and positive for up and down. Because remember, there's no X to G or G to H here. It's just a negative and positive amount. Next we have our GLACs, our GL accounting data. And we can go much more in depth on these, where 4.7 is a commitment, 4.6 is a annual target, 4.5 is a quarterly target, 4.8 is UOO, 4.901 is AEU, 4.902 is AEP, and there's several other little intermittent ones, especially with reimbursable accounting, that we can cover. But there's listings that are available to you to start to learn these, and I highly recommend using an index match or a vertical lookup in your products to make these much more in layman's terms. Next you have your OE, your F and your 401L1, your fund, which shows your O&M or mil-pers, and your fiscal year and obligation year. They're broken out here. And then your BLIN that ends in your SAG. Just make sure that you remember that the SAG that ends in 0117, which is your mission support group SAG, goes a lot with your mission support group PECs. That data in DEAMS can allow for either a 13 or 15 digit. 15 is wrong, stick with a shorter one. And then we can continue across. As we work our way across, the BA is here. The program is the PEC with 2 0 fillers. Cost center, you'll remember, is your RCCC. OC is the corresponding object class and object subclass that were used to be EECs. It tells us what we bought. Our ESP code here can be broken out as a contingency code or an activity identifier. Notice that this column is convenient because it allows us to join these together. DEAMS looks at them as two different things. You'll notice that ACA mission is a contingency code, as is 7 Charlie or any other contingency roles. Here's our sales code, our work order or job order if that was loaded to that line of accounting. Here's our AAI, or our former ADSN. There's your obligation year. And then here's some DEAMS specific data that it will go through. You'll have combination codes, which is DEAMS specific to that line of accounting, and then you'll have your debits and your credits. Reference 1, notice reference 1 will change based on whether or not it's a payable, an account receivable, etc. But you'll have anything from an 8-digit number to a 1081 vendor, all the way down to the actual vendor name of the payment. So depending on the type and status and GLAC that it affected, this data will be changing, and we'll go into that more in detail in a minute. Reference 2 and 3 will also change based on the type of report, as will reference 4 and 5. Reference 4 is oftentimes going to be associated with your target load document numbers, your access accounts, your Form 9s or requisition number, or your PO numbers, and those will continue through there. Your reference 5 will change to corresponding invoices or payments or POs depending. So you could have your invoice number or your check number, all of those things depending on what type of account or data line that actually affected. The rest of the GL is pretty self-explanatory for the posted date, the effective date. Here's that period I was talking about. That's the period that it applied to. You need to make sure when you're approving documents that they're applying to a current period, not an expired period. The batch name is here. The journal entry name is here. The source, and this is what drives those different reference columns, is budgetary, mass allocation, payables, purchasing, receivable, or SMAS. Your category here is your appropriation, your AEP, your invoices, etc. And your JE header and JE line number, these are very unique to those transactions, and when you view this information in CRIS, that'll be your DEAMS transaction ID. References over here are mostly null, but that is an introduction to the STH. Much more in-depth data will go into the actual creation of your STH program. I hope you enjoyed this training. Thank you.